With players, coaches and management all training and working from home, spare a thought for the sports writers and journalists during this lockdown period. We caught up with OFM sports editor Morgan Piek to hear how this global pandemic has impacted him and how he keeps himself busy.
It has impacted me and a lot of my colleagues throughout the country. Of course, sport writing is all about the game day, and that is what we do focus a lot of our attention on during the course of the week. You know, match previews, team announcements, match coverage, post-match injury updates. So with no matches being played across the world, really, myself in particular, I have shifted my attention to having a look at things like player movements, contracting of players, rehabilitation. So that's the kind of thing that we've been focusing on. It has been quite enlightening and quite fun doing it. At the end of the day, I would say that this whole situation we are in will actually separate the journalists, the true journalists, from the wannabes, because the wannabes are the guys that won't know how to do things, would not have the drive to do things that, you know, guys like us will normally do. So it has been challenging, but it's been welcome to a certain degree. Yeah, that's quite an interesting one. The Cheetahs, if you remember correctly, the Cheetahs' first lockdown game game that was meant to be played but wasn't due to the lockdown was against Leinster here in Bloemfontein. And the next weekend they would have faced Edinburgh, who were of course, Leinster are the champions. They were the high-flying team at the moment, unbeaten. And the Cheetahs had just got back from an overseas tour, which didn't work out the way that it should have, with a couple of losses. But having said that, the Cheetahs were about to enter a phase where, memory serves me correctly, 6 or 7 of the last 8 games would have been at home. So they would have been on a very nice run here in Bloemfontein. You know, had they got positive results against Leinster and Edinburgh, they would have definitely been in the playoffs by now. So I think the Cheetahs are, and I'm not saying it because the Cheetahs are the team based in the city where I stay and work. I think they are probably the team that has been robbed the most from this, and I think to a certain degree the Southern Kings as well, because the Cheetahs in particular have played a lot of rugby overseas, away from home. Under Harvey's Free, he came in after 3 games. Of course, the first 3 games of the season was for Franco Smith. They won those games, and then Harvey's came in and immediately toured. Under Harvey's, he's had just 1 home game throughout his tenure as a Cheetahs coach, and that is about 10 or 9 games already. So, you know, pretty tough for the bloke to come in and having to have these expectations of carrying on the good work that Franco left. Of course, a person wants that, but it's not an ideal world, and it was never going to be that simple, especially having to be on the road for as many games as they should have been. But I think they did leave themselves in a good space. It could have perhaps been better with 1 or 2 positive results that should have gone their way. There was a game in Italy that was a shock result, 1 or 2 games in Wales. That game against Connacht, where the guys were pretty much robbed of a win against Connacht. So I think they would have been pretty. Whether they would have gone through to the semi-finals or not, that's debatable. There's so many variables that come into the factor: injuries, suspensions, etc. So, but I definitely think they would have been in the playoffs by now. I'm going to say that I'm incredibly excited about the new players. Of course, the talking point at this point in time is definitely Frans Steyn. Biggest signing that the Cheetahs have made in many, many, many years. Ruan Pienaar was a big signing, but a 2-time World Cup winner, the youngest man ever to win the Rugby World Cup, is massive. It is massive for the Cheetahs. He's got so much to offer them. And I'm positive that Frans will have a big influence on helping steering the Cheetahs in the right direction, and, you know, just being calm when it comes to playing overseas. A couple more signings. One I'm really excited about is Marcel Miller. This kid is an absolute beast, one of the most impressive schoolboy rugby players I've seen in a very long time. Last year he was tipping the scales at 102 kilograms. He's a winger, weighs in at the same as his former school teammate George Cronje, who's also signed at the Cheetahs. George Cronje is, of course, a lock and a flank, and George weighs 102 kilograms, so it tells you how big Marcel Miller is. Marcel Miller clocks 100 meters in about 10 seconds, so he's a lot of speed. There was a lot of interest in this kid. He went for trials in Australia. He ultimately ended up at Montpellier, where a whole bunch of the great boys also ended up. And of course, Frans Steyn he's coming from Montpellier. And Ron Pienaar's last team was Montpellier before he came back to the Cheetahs, or came to the Cheetahs. And very exciting, the most recent sighting is probably an exceptionally gifted rugby player, is Jean-Andre Rudolph. He was the captain of Piek. He led them to the Varsity Cup title in 2016. So he's an absolute gem of a player. He's quick over the ball. He's solid in defence, good on attack. Not the speediest, but he gets things done. He knows how to create something with the ball in hand. And quite interestingly, he's going to become the latest of a long line of Piek who are now Cheetahs. From that particular team, the first is Rainer Smith, who was his vice-captain, of course, the leading point scorer in the Pro 14. He was the vice-captain under Jean-Andre Rudolph. Benant Janssen van Rensburg played fly half for that team. And then among the forwards, Wald Steenkamp was at lock and the hooker Wilmar Naldi. So there's a total of 5 of those players in the starting 15 from that final, which beat Marty 7-6. Well, I think, guys, just carry on doing what we are busy doing. We are South Africans. We're a very diverse nation. It's not the first time that we've had to overcome odds. Where there's a will, there's a way, and this is really just our time to test ourselves, be innovative, and just make ourselves all leaders in whatever we do. We've been given a platform, been given an opportunity, so guys, let's just go ahead and do it.